The public broadcaster, is it here?
Wait for them.
And ANC, so that you balance, you can use the screen. ANN7. Oh, okay, ANN7 is here. Okay.
No, Karen to please.
Karen?
Kanjani
You can't continue without Karen.
No, we can't.
Eh?
No, Stephen Grossen?
Stephen,
Stephen, hey.
Okay, go ahead.
No,
go
ahead. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The time is, it's important to always remind you, it's exactly at 2. It's 2 minutes past 2.
No, it's not. It's 2 o'clock.
It's 2 o'clock. Like we said, we had requested that the ANC leadership over the weekend, many of you have been calling to ask for the ANC's response to the developments at Cosatu. We had indicated that the ANC will respond early this week, and we decided it will respond this afternoon, having allowed the leadership of the ANC to interact with those developments. The Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Gwede Mantashe, is here on behalf of the leadership of the ANC to present a comprehensive response of the ANC. SG?
Good afternoon. I'm with Comrade Zizikoda, the spokesperson of the ANC, and the chairperson of the Communication Subcommittee of the NSC, Comrade Lindwezulu. And I appeal to all of you, don't call a minister here today. She is not here on that capacity. We thought that it is important to give you our reaction to the developments in Cosatu. We're going to do 2 things. We're going to present to you the statement, and we're going to give you formally the report of the task team of Cosatu. I know some of you got it informally, others received it, but we'll give it to you formally from the task team of the ANC and explain a little bit of the 11 recommendations that are made there. What do they mean in essence? Because sometimes we have many spokespersons who speak on our behalf and try to explain what the findings of the task teams are. Our starting point is that the outcome of the Central Executive Committee of Cosatu, specifically the expulsion of the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, Numsa, is disappointing and tragic. That is the official ANC view about the developments. From its inception, Cosatu was established to advance worker solidarity in order to unite and organize workers and the working class to improve their conditions. Our view as the African National Congress is and has always been that we must support Cosatu in its historic mission to consolidate and advance worker unity. As such, as an organization, we will resist any temptation to engage in the current dispute characterized by mudslinging and insult against individuals and components of the tripartite alliance. Basically, we're going to avoid getting into what I describe as violent polemics in engaging with a difficult situation. We reaffirm our position that the expulsion of Numsa from the Federation is bad for Cosatu itself, it is bad for the ANC, it is bad for the alliance, it is bad for progressive forces as well, for society in general. Within this context, and given the challenges faced by Cosatu, the ANC has established a task team led by the Deputy President, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, to mediate and assist to address some challenges facing Cosatu and the differences among its affiliates. The intention was to persuade comrades to avoid a split in the Federation at all costs. We did that consistently for a year. Where they were on the verge of splitting, we intervened and said, listen, do everything, fight yourself, fight it out, lock yourself in a room, don't split this thing, it's too dear to us. Given that not so easy task, by building unity, the ANC task team met all the 19 Cosatu affiliates. We're making this point because people may have a view that we had met a particular affiliate and left the others. We met each and every affiliate of the Federation during that period. And the report of the task team to Cosatu sought to provide suggestions on how to deal with the conflict within the Federation. Among the suggestions, which we'll come back to, offered was that Numsa reverses its decision to extend the scope beyond its identified industry and subject itself to discipline principles and regulations of the Federation. Our view was that historically, extension of scope by any affiliate in Cosatu was never a decision of an affiliate. It has always been a decision of the Federation. I can share with you my practical experience as at one time General Secretary of the NUM. We extended the scope in the NUM 2 times in our history. The first time was in 1985 when Cosatu was launched in the inaugural conference. We went to that inaugural congress of Cosatu as a purely mining union. When we arrived there, we were told to cover electricity workers as well. And the reason for that was very simple. In terms of the founders of Cosatu, for every power station there will be a colliery and a conveyor belt linking that colliery to that power station. Therefore, it was logical that the value chain was one, and therefore we must extend our scope. And that's what we had. At that time, we didn't have members in energy. We had workers, members in the mine. Mau, which is now a component of Numsa, had members already. We said, keep those members until we establish ourselves, which we did in 2 years. In 1997, we got our recognition, went back to Numsa, said, we can hand over that membership. It never came. I don't know now. For the duration of my stay in the NUM, that membership was never brought back. Secondly, we were told by Cosatu to extend our scope in 1997. That extension was again a Federation decision to say, let's attach volatile sectors to stable sectors. Agriculture and forestry was attached to FAO. Construction was attached to the NUM. And that's why when we were to merge with CAU, we had to take a trip to Australia, go and see a model of the CFMEU. C means construction, F forestry, M mining, energy union. That is CFMEU. We had to go and see their model. How did they bring these various sectors together to form a strong union, which was led by John Maitland at the time. And we came back with CAU, work on the modalities. We merged construction into the NUM. And our recommendation was basically saying, listen, instead of Numsa being breaking away from the Federation by extending the scope willy-nilly, it must go back to the Federation, have a discussion, and if they must extend their scope, then the Federation must make that decision. Even if it means the Federation says, Numsa and NUM, because of the international developments, are affiliated to the same international, please merge. It should be a Federation resolution that gives that directive. That is the basis of that recommendation. We don't believe that the challenges facing the Federation are insurmountable or the differences irreconcilable. Allowing a split in the Federation can only help the historic enemies of the alliance from both left and right. Because it is not only right-wingers who are opposed to the alliance, it is also left-wingers who are opposed to the alliance. And therefore, this is creating an opportunity for these enemies of the alliance who are historic about their views about the undesirability of the alliance. This development can never be celebrated. It in fact calls upon all of us to work hard to find each other. The ANC will continue to engage the Federation to conduct a detailed analysis of the impact of this decision. The ANC will further engage with their affiliates with a view of consolidating unity. So we're not going to give up. We'll continue engaging the comrade. The ideological and class character of the ANC has always been contested given the different class interests. The ANC, by its nature, is a multi-class movement. It is not the vanguard of the working class. It is not a communist party. It has always been a liberation movement which has a primary responsibility of organizing and mobilizing all classes and strata in society. That is the class character of the ANC, and the ANC remains a disciplined force of the left, biased towards working class and the poor. The working class and workers in particular remain a critical motive force of the National Democratic Revolution, and the ANC prides itself as the champion of their right and interests. Constructive contestation are healthy and must always be appreciated within the context of the democratic character of our movement. Equally, we must protect the movement against any attack of its profound principles. As we work hard to find solutions, we must be vigilant to any strategies and plans to destroy Cosatu and the alliance at all costs. That is our view on this development. The attacks on the ANC by Numsa are unfounded. The ANC remains committed to and continue to pursue the implementation of the Freedom Charter, and the ANC has scored remarkable achievements in the past 20 years and acknowledge that much more needs to be done. We always describe the last 20 years. That's why we say we're moving to the radical economic and social transformation phase. We acknowledge that the first 20 years was a radical redistribution phase. And we can give you numbers to prove that. If you look into electricity connection as an example, over 100 years, various administrations of the previous minority governments connected 5 million households. Within 20 years, the ANC connected additional 7 million households to take the number to 12 million households. That is radical redistribution. You can take education, you can take houses, you can take any other aspect of life. You will come to the same conclusion that we're moving from a radical redistribution phase to a more radical economic infrastructure and economic development phase. That is what we are committing ourselves to. In this 53rd National Conference, the ANC adopted the NDP as the framework to move South Africa forward and increase investment, skills, development, job creation, and elimination of poverty. Therefore, the NDP, from where we stand, is by no means a neoliberal ideological problem, but a program, but a plan to implement the ideals of the Freedom Charter. The conflict in Cosatu must be treated as a conflict inside the Federation in which the ANC task team remains available to assist in the resolution thereof and ensure reconciliation and building of unity and cohesion in the Federation. We want to just highlight the recommendation we made to the CC of Cosatu. You must appreciate that we call this recommendation, and we must understand the reason why we call this recommendation. It's because the ANC cannot impose solutions on Cosatu. Cosatu is an independent organization, the Communist Party is an independent organization, the ANC is an independent organization. The ANC can recommend that if you do X, Y, and Z, it will help you resolve the conflict. But the primary obligation of resolving the conflict is in Cosatu, not in the ANC. That's why sometimes when people ask us whether we believe that our intervention failed or succeeded, we always give an answer that is very simple. That, listen, our intervention cannot fail or succeed. It could only be Cosatu that succeeds or fails, because we'll make recommendations to them to deal with particular issues and be able to allow them to take their own decision. We gave them the recommendation, and when you read this report, you are going to see that we talk about everything, including the Special Congress, we talk about the expansion of the scope, but I want to take you through the recommendation that we've given to Cosatu. The first recommendation was that there is agreement on the importance of maintaining unity in Cosatu and the integrity of the organization as a cohesive force in society, because workers in South Africa are strongest and best served when organized under a united Cosatu. The principle of one union, one industry was accepted as the founding basis for Cosatu. The NOBs agreed that they need to show a united approach to addressing issues relating to the contravention of the Constitution of Cosatu. The distinction we're making there is Cosatu is not a federation of craft unions. It is a federation of industrial unions. So you can't have a union of nurses, or a union of artisans, or a union of miners. You organize every worker in that sector where you are operating. That's why you are not a craft union but an industrial union. That is the first thing that we are acknowledging. And therefore, if there are nurses in a mine hospital, the NUM went out of its way and organized those nurses into the NUM, because it is not organizing crafts, it is organizing an industry. And if you can take any other skill within that sector. And if you have a person who's doing blasting in transport, won't go out and organize that blaster into the NUM because we think that blasting is our craft. That blaster must belong to that union in transport. That's how it works. The second one is that we found widespread support and agreement that all Cosatu resolutions adopted at the National Congress must be implemented. One of the biggest fights was that there is reluctance to implement certain resolutions, and our view was that once a Congress of Cosatu take resolutions, the CEC of Cosatu as a body has a duty and an obligation to implement those resolutions. Not selectively, not what I like, what other people don't like. The third one was that Cosatu's primary objective is, and must continue to be, to defend, protect, and advance the interest of its members. Therefore, the whole myth of an ANC that requires a federation that is a labor desk of the ANC is indeed a myth. Because if Cosatu stops protecting and advancing the interests of its members, it will cease to be a federation of trade unions. It will be something else. Therefore, it is not in the interest of the ANC. We saw it so ourselves in the recommendation to them. The fourth one was that everyone in the federation acknowledged that there have always been internal differences of questions of policy and strategy since this formation, and would be expected from large federations that draws its members across all industry, province, and viewpoints. However, the NOPs agreed that the task of leadership is to manage the diversity of opinion, identify the areas of broad consensus as captured in the resolution of the Federation, and manage the internal dynamics carefully. This requires the NOPs to play a key role as unifiers in the Federation. So in other words, we never had a Cosatu of members of the ANC. All the time in Cosatu, you find people from different political backgrounds, from different provinces, from different backgrounds. They were organized on the basis of a workplace. And the political program of a trade union was incidental to having organized those workers into a trade union. And therefore, we don't have a Cosatu, which is an extension of the ANC, because Cosatu affiliates must organize every worker in a workplace. The fifth one was the autonomy of affiliates must be respected, and it be acknowledged that this autonomy must be exercised within the broad policies of the Federation and its constitution. It is further emphasized that the Federation's constitution and the principles are binding on all affiliates. In other words, yes, autonomous, but affiliates of a federation. Therefore, the policy framework of the Federation is what brings those affiliates together to belong together. If we undermine those principles and the constitution of the Federation, we can as well have no federation. That's it. And the sixth one is that there is agreement that during the period of rebuilding unity, there must be cessation of hostilities, and that committees that deal with that issue should be set to deal with contravention, whether they are perceived or real. In other words, is that we didn't think of an ideal situation where there will be no contraventions. We said when there are contraventions, there must be active mechanism of dealing with the contraventions. Otherwise, we will be in an ideal world where we think that we're in a world of saints. The whole organization that is the home of saints is the ANC, you know. In the ANC, we're all saints, you know that. Because we define saints as those sinners who continue to try to do the right thing. So no other organization is an organization of saints except the ANC. Now, The seventh one was that there is agreement on the constitutional rights of 1/3 of affiliates to call for a special Congress. So in our recommendation, we say you can't deny that it's in the constitution of the Federation when a third of affiliates ask for a special Congress. Constitutionally, the Federation must call that special Congress. It's in the Constitution. We don't need to rewrite that. But the task team knows that the NOBs recognize that the right for calling special Congress should be exercised with care, informed by clear intended outcomes, and take into consideration all factors such as cost, logistics, etc. And the NOBs recognize that the current request for a special national Congress is perceived differently by affiliates and have created division, and that it may lead to a split in Cosatu. It was therefore the view of the NOBs that the Cosatu Central Committee's main function is to assess and evaluate the implementation of current policies and resolution. It was further agreed that political issues such as the National Democratic Revolution, the NDP, the functioning of the alliance need urgent engagement. It was the view of both the NOBs and the Cosatu test team that the purpose of Special Congress should be to help the Federation to build its unity and internal cohesion. And the timing of the Congress, its precise agenda and purpose will all be influenced by the outcome of the current internal process within Cosatu and engagement with the ANC task team. In other words, we said, don't tamper with the constitutional right. Deal with the practicalities of organizing that special Congress. And one of the issues that we actually highlighted was that by the time Cosatu comes out of its central committee, it will be 9 months to the normal, ordinary conference of the Federation. Whether it's a special Congress or you call an early conference, what would be the difference? But we said, we leave that to you. But look into all the practical arrangement of organizing a special Congress. The other was that there must be a process in place to deal with certain organizational and administrative matters, such as the pending disciplinary cases, the status of the second deputy president, Sizwe Ntsaluba Gobodo report, and other, so as to bring this to closure. Our recommendation to them was say, comrade, in dealing with these issues, don't be dogmatic and just stick to the technicalities. Deal with these issues as political. You need to bring closer to all of them, quicker for you to focus on the work at hand. So if comrades come out of that and go back and say, we start the NER committee here from the scratch to the end again, we start that, and our view is that you are actually creating an environment for conflict all the time. AMACOM should have come together, discuss those issues, come with a formula of closing them as quick as possible. Recommendation number 9 was that the Federation staff must show impartiality in serving the office bearers, and they should not become involved in activities that support one group in the Federation, and the NOBs must take steps to ensure this impartiality. And basically we're saying you must not have staff members who are supporting that grouping or that grouping. Staff members must do the work of the Federation impartially. The 10th recommendation was that the CC must unite around fighting program that encompasses the implementation of all Federation resolutions and policies, including its core campaigns in defense of the workers. The last recommendation, and recommendation number 11, is that there was acknowledgement that the political difference on matters such as the direction of the NDR, NDP, and function of the alliance must be addressed in the Federation first. They must have a consensus, then engage in the alliance processes that will draw all the allies to develop mechanisms to address them. These matters must now receive priority in the work of the alliance. All affiliates that the task team met, as well as NOBs, reaffirm their continued commitment to strategic alliance. Let's make one point before I sit down. This was that in dealing with the question of expanding the scope and poaching, we recommended to Cosatu to say, establish a commission that is chaired by a person who is outside of the Federation to deal with cases of poaching. Because poaching and expanding the scope are not the same. Poaching is when you recruit people across these sectors, but they are not in your sector. That is poaching. And the Federation must be firm in dealing with that. Because expanding the scope is a different issue. It's a constitutional matter and it's a policy matter. That is the decision we made in our recommendation. That's why in the statement we said all the allegations against the ANC by Numsa are basically unfounded. That's the end of our briefing. I'm sure there are no questions. We will have clarified all the issues.
No, I'm sure there will be. Thank you, SG. The copies of the task team report shall be distributed for your attention. Shall we take questions, assuming there are questions, right at the back? Can I take the 3 hands first and the 2 hands here? I must indicate that the SG has to still join the meeting of the officials, so just take one big round if there is one big. Koli, is there a mic?
No, suppressed. Very good. You must be suppressed.
Thank you very much. I have 2 questions. The one is that you say the ANC remains available to speak to Cosatu and given another opportunity, if the ANC does get one, will you recommend a reversal of Numsa's expulsion from Cosatu? The second one is that the 7 unions that are in support of Numsa and its cause at the moment have just addressed the media today, and they say that the only solution to this crisis is the convening of a special national congress. Now, given that the Cosatu president, Stu Mdlamini, appears to be the person who this decision basically it is to convene this conference, is it something that the ANC would impress upon him to try and convene this special congress without delay to avoid a further fallout?
Next.
SABC News. The tripartite alliance, in your view, do you think it is in jeopardy at the moment?
Come again?
The tripartite alliance.
In jeopardy.
My name is Hajra Marji from ANN7. We've just come from a press conference where 7 unions, other than Numsa, announced their suspension from Cosatu Central Executive Committee and said they would not attend Cosatu Central Committee. They said the CEC had become a bunch of gangsters and it was torture being in there, and they will go back to workers on a mandate on the way forward. They claimed that including Numsa, they represent between 700 and 900,000 workers. They said they took the decision because their mandate from workers is to defend Numsa, and they accused the ANC of empowering and entrenching the faction that expelled Numsa in the CEC. Can I have the ANC response?
There were 2 hands here, right? Okay.
Thank you. My name is Warren Mawona from the Citizen. Can you give us the implications of Numsa's expulsion from Cosatu? Because during the run-up to the May 7 elections, Numsa withdrew its support for the ANC, and this cost ANC R2 million in the voter support for the election campaign. So I worry that you might not be able to garner enough support for the 2016 local government elections now that Numsa is no longer part of the alliance. Thank you.
Right in front of you, Warren.
Natasha from the Business Day. It's a right on Koli's question. Do you think there's still room for intervention in the Cosatu matter, given that after the ANC task team had presented its report, the Cosatu CEC went directly back to the agenda that was put in abeyance in the earlier CEC this year. So they basically sidestepped the report and went directly to the agenda that was put on hold in April.
Amy Musgrave, Independent Media. I just have a couple of questions, please. First of all,
not couple.
No, well,
Otherwise, I will end with you,
no.
and then I don't take the rest.
The questions are important. My first question is...
Amy, just a second, please.
I'm not going to ask about that.
No, I'm just saying please. We're just indicating we've got time problems, and there's a whole lot of people that must ask.
Okay.
Yeah. Questions are important, time is important.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Just when you were giving your address, SG, you said that it would be bad for society as a whole if Numsa is filed and it continues. I just want you to explain to us what you think is going to happen. And then my last question is, you didn't mention it when you were briefing on the ANC report, and I could be, perhaps I have been read the wrong report, but in that report, you did mention that if Cosatu holds a special national congress, that perhaps they should not consider doing an election, rather discuss policy and the way forward for Cosatu. Surely that would be going against what Cosatu's constitution is about. I'd just like to comment on that as well.
Do you have a copy of the report, a report from us?
Yes, I did get a report from you.
Okay.
Your latest report. I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Please, thank you for the way regarding this. Just a point of clarity. From the statement that you made this morning, it is clear that that all the ANC decisions that were or recommendations rather was opposed by the people that actually made decisions in the Cosatu Central Executive Committee on Friday. Now, some of those individuals actually sit in executive positions of the ANC, and if they, some of those people who are sympathetic to a faction that ultimately won on Friday sit in the executive structures of the ANC. Now, how will the SG perhaps take this matter forward in discussing it? I'm sure that when the NEC meets, is it a point of concern at all that Cosatu is no longer Cosatu as it is? And will there be any form of lashing out against those who sort of was defiant to the ANC and to perhaps cost the alliance?
I think let's just answer right there. I think let's answer.
It can be completely. You see, Yad is a very experienced labor reporter. I'm sure he's grown as an editor or senior editor. Yeah, Jan. Will we recommend a reversal of the decision of the CEC? I think there's one thing that you continue to miss, is that we're in alliance as independent parties. Always write that down and remember that all the time. That we don't dictate to another alliance partner what to do. We don't do that. But what we are saying is that in engaging them, we'll explain to them our views, that this decision is bad for Cosatu itself, it's bad for the alliance, it's bad for the ANC, it's bad for progressive forces, and it's bad for society. When we do so, it is up to the federation itself to smell the coffee and see whether it should revisit its decision. And our view is that if there should be meeting of minds, there must be readiness on all the parties that are fighting now in the conflict, that they must be able to swallow the pride and give up some of the things they think are very important. For example, I think that there will be a necessity to say expelling a union from the federation is not good. But there must also be a realization that if you just drive against the policy of the federation, it doesn't matter how big you can be, you are actually actively destroying that federation. And therefore, they must meet halfway and have a discussion that pulls them together. That's what we should be encouraging them to do. That, listen, please get out of your position, don't dig your heels, don't stay in the trenches, come out of the trenches, talk to each other, not past each other. or don't talk against each other. That would be our approach. Will we advise Dumo to call the special conference? Our understanding is that the President received the letters, make the recommendations to the CEC of the Federation. And once they agree there, a special congress is convened. It's not the power of an individual to say, I'm convening it. He can say, right, I think we should convene it. The logistics are as follows. The resources are available. Let's go ahead. But at the end of the day, there should be agreement of the CEC. And that takes me to the question that was raised by the lady who had a couple of questions. Amy. There is no constitution of Cosatu that says a special congress is about election. There's no such a constitution, not unless you have a new one that I never saw. A special congress is about addressing specific issues. That's why when you call a special congress, there must be agreement on the agenda. It is the normal Congress that has a duty to elect leadership in terms of the Constitution. And if they must elect leadership, it must be a deliberate decision to put that as an agenda item. But it is not given that you'll have a special Congress to elect. It's not like that. That's why it is called special. But the National Congress of Cosatu has, as one of its duties, consider the following reports that will be listed and elect a leadership. Special means the leadership of the Federation go to a special Congress will determine items of agenda of a special Congress. So there's no question that says if you don't elect, therefore you are contravening a constitution, because there's no such a constitutional provision. Now, the question of is the alliance in true party, I don't think so. Many people tend to talk about this alliance. You know, I was listening to Umashik this morning, who says the alliance was not meant to be a permanent feature. And what he didn't say is that the alliance has no time frame of existence. You see? Because it is not an alliance by agreement of organizations, no. It is an alliance that came out of the trenches, out of the struggles. There is no written agreement of the constitution of the alliance. There is no such, you will never find it. Because it is not an alliance by agreement of leaders in a boardroom. That's why you will never find a constitution of the alliance, you will never find the rules. It is an alliance of good faith, of utmost trust among parties that went together and shared the trenches. And therefore, the life of that alliance will not be determined with a time frame or by an individual member or a component. It will be determined by the end of the need to work together to drive, because the struggle doesn't end in 1994. Transformation itself is a struggle, because you must deal now with the legacy and the consequences of the system that was declared an evil against humanity. And that in itself is a journey, very complex, very long, very tedious, and requires more energies. Now, if we say it's not important, we can go our different ways, it will be determined so by the time of a generation that will think that things are normal. Now we can go our different ways. So there's no time frame because there's no agreement. There is no permanence because there's no agreement. But there is trust and good faith that determines the alliance. That's why any alliance program is regarded as the minimum program of the alliance, because it means you suspend some of what you want to do as an individual alliance partner, but engage yourself in a program on issues where you agree. You don't have an alliance that engages on programs of disagreement. We must persuade each other to agree on particular issues. Everything we agree on must be part of the program. If we don't agree, it's not in the program. Each individual affiliate alliance partner can pursue its individual program. That's how it works. So it cannot be in jeopardy because Cosatu is now in trouble. It's one of the alliance partners. Actually, it's a legal successor of its predecessor, SACTU, basically. So sometimes, because after the unbanning, Cosatu took the place of SACTU, doesn't make it the determinant of the existence of the alliance, because the alliance predates the conception of Cosatu. Now, 7 unions suspended themselves from the CEC. I don't think I'm competent enough to deal with that issue, because if affiliates of Cosatu, it's a Cosatu matter, suspends themselves from the CEC and say they will pursue a particular program, it's a decision to disengage but find solutions. Now, I don't understand the logic of finding a solution through disengagement, but it's a choice they make. Cosatu must deal with that reality, but I will never imagine a situation where we find solutions through disengagement. That's why we say we are prepared to continue engaging all of them and the federation itself, because we know that we are not going to stand on the sideline and contribute to finding solutions. We can only find those solutions if we engage. And they accuse the ANC of supporting other faction. That allegation has been made over and over, and sometimes I have a sense that some of the comments just rehearse it. You know, yesterday I was also accused of having made a motion in a Cosatu Congress, and I said, but what happened to people understanding basic organizational rules, that I cannot make any motion in a Cosatu Congress or a party Congress if I'm not a delegate. If I am an invited guest, I can talk 100 times, but my views have a particular status of views. That's it. But who make a motion, who seconds a motion, are delegates to a Congress. So if there were problems in adopting a particular resolution, it can't be a function of observers. It's a function of delegates. That's how organizations work. We invite them to ANC conferences. We'll do so in the NGC. We'll do so in policy conferences. We'll do so in conferences. But all of them appreciate that at the end of the day, decisions in the ANC are taken by ANC delegates. They are given an opportunity to influence the discussions and maybe the outcome, but that outcome will be a function of what delegates of the ANC decide on. The same applies to Cosatu. The same applies to the party. If they have a special congress, they are inviting us. I will try to ensure that I'm part of the ANC delegation and go to that special conference. I will say anything I want to say as an observer, but I will not determine the outcome of that conference, because I will not be a delegate to that conference. Where is Warren? I didn't see him. Where was he talking? Oh, yes, Warren. Cosatu withdrew their support for the ANC and we lost support. And to give credit to Numsa that we lost the 3% in the national elections. Who do you attribute the losing of a percentage from 2004 to 2009? Because all of a sudden, Numsa said, we're not going to support the ANC. I can tell you, in the machinery of Cosatu, there were thousands and thousands of metal workers in their individual right, as members of the ANC, as volunteers of the ANC, from area to area. So sometimes there is something exaggerated, as if we are having the same relationship as the TUC and the British Labour Party. You know, the TUC has a block vote in the Labour Party. Here we don't have that. Numsa, Cosatu or Numsa or the NUM have no block vote in the ANC. Individual members from those organizations have individual vote in the ANC as delegates and as members. So there's nothing like, if an organization takes a decision that I'm not going to the ANC, it takes that decision, it's law, and every member of that organization will not vote ANC. They go and vote ANC individually. So we'll continue working hard as the ANC. supported by somebody else and not supported by others. Other new people will come and support us, as it happens all the time. But at the end of the day, it is the work of the individual that makes the difference. It's not the work of the organization. Even when the organization say they support the ANC, they will send people, teams that will contribute as individuals within the machinery of the African National Congress. That will be the case in 2016. That will be the case in 2019. It will be the case all the time. That's how it works. The task team report, and the task team report, the CC went back on that report. I don't know if they went back. We gave them the report. We left it with them. We're giving it to you today, to just know the content of what we recommended to them. And when we recommend to them, we say, here is the report, our own findings, having engaged all of you, are these recommendations. Go and discuss them. That's why when they sit to discuss the report, the ANC doesn't sit in, because we're not members of the CEC. We're a task team. We give them recommendation for that organization to take decisions that are good for the organization. What we think is not, it doesn't matter much. The Cosatu must take decision, its own decision. It is an organization. It is not an extension of the ANC. The last question is, in the people who went against the recommendation of the ANC, are people sitting in the NEC of the ANC. We don't have ANC NEC members in Cosatu. Okay. No, do we have Cosatu members in the NEC of the ANC? Because if we do that, we will be contravening our own constitution that says, if communists join the ANC, they don't constitute themselves into a communist party faction in the ANC. If people are members of the ANC, they serve in status of the ANC, they don't go to Cosatu and work on the director of the ANC and constitute themselves into an ANC faction in Cosatu. So we don't have NEC members in Cosatu CEC. Nor do we have Cosatu CEC members in the NEC of the ANC. That's how it works. Okay, at one time I was serving in three organizations. And the strength of a good leader is to understand that when I'm in the ANC, I am a member and a leader of the ANC. I don't confuse the decision of the Central Committee of the Communist Party with the decision of the NEC of the ANC. Otherwise, I will cause a lot of confusion in society. So we don't have those people talking about those who you call members of the NEC of the ANC in Cosatu CC. We don't have them.
Thank you very much, SG, for that clarity. May I ask, the last group, you are very disadvantaged. Only there's no comeback. We're going to take just, we have about 5-10 minutes left. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are my last hands. Thank you very much.
The 9 unions, which is today 8, I think, who requested a special National Congress. At the press conference that they announced that the documents that I've seen, the letters they requested, they were explicit about this, that they want the leadership election. So there was no doubt about the agenda for the special National Congress. Why didn't the ANC were more forceful in requesting Cosatu to hold this special National Congress? It's obvious that the special National Congress is the only way to preserve the unity of Cosatu. That may lead to an end of the alliance between the ANC and Cosatu. Isn't it clear that you have a vested interest that a special National Congress doesn't take place?
Ladies and gentlemen, SABC News. No, but are you saying the ANC intervention would not have failed to succeed? It can't describe that. But when the leader of the task team, the Deputy President, Mr. Ramaphosa, when he addressed the media in Cape Town some 2 weeks ago, it was clear the mandate is to ensure that there's unity within the federation. And a large number of those in the Cosatu SABC clearly rejected the trusting recommendations. Surely the ANC knows that as a party that has vested interest, as Jan says, and as a leader of the alliance, you have in fact spectacularly failed in ensuring that the federation is not unified, because, as an example, Numsa has been expelled. And also, are you going to speak to Numsa directly?
Numsa from the BBC Africa Service. Mr. Gwede Mantashe, you mentioned in your statement that expelling Numsa is not good for ANC, it's not good for Cosatu, it's not good for the Communist Party. But the 7 affiliates who have moved out of Cosatu, including Numsa today, if at all the talks fail, how do you think this is going to affect the ANC as a ruling party in future?
Thank you. None? Stephen Curtis?
Stephen Curtis, Eyewitness News. Mr. Mantashe, I've got to come back to this quote about it's bad for society in general. Surely this is just going to lead to more political competition. That might be bad for the ANC. I'd hate you to run the risk of conflating the needs of the ANC versus what is bad for society. Is that not the mistake you're making? And also, if I remember, you did admit it was a mistake to serve as SACP Chair and ANC Secretary General at the same time.
Thanks very much. SG, thanks very much.
I just add my question. It's not on your question. I just want to extend it a bit.
Jan. You must never overstay your welcome. Let me start with the question by Stephen, because I didn't write it. This is Stephen. It is bad for society. Can I tell you what is bad for society? It's not competition. It would be destructive competition. That is bad for competition. Competition is good, but destructive competition is bad for society. Because instead of having political competition, you may have what I said earlier, violent polemics. Violent polemics don't add value to any debate. Violent polemics actually are constituted by sniping each other politically instead of engaging each other. That is what we call is bad for society. And if you listen, I know that many people think that when they use the term independent, they limit independence to be independent of the ANC. That is not independent. Independent is to be on your own. You are independent of any influence. In other words, you insulate yourself from influence, and you also insulate yourself from influencing anybody. So that is our understanding of that situation. And we say once people stop engaging, that is bad for society because it doesn't add value. The reason that we supported proportional representation as a form of parliamentary system is because that system gives the voice to the smallest party. Party with one person in parliament has a voice in parliament and in the debate. And if we want to insulate ourselves from those voices, we would go there and propose constituency-based elections. Then we begin, and once we do that, all the small party will be wiped out and we suppress views in society. And that will be bad for society. Now, the 9 unions ask for elections. That is what they ask. But a structure called the CEC take a decision. That's what happens. You know, I heard one former leader of Cosatu saying it's X number of people in a room deciding for more than 2 million members. And somebody, when he asked me that question, I gave an answer and said, but that leader was a founding leader of the federation. The structures right there have not been changed. They were set up by them. If those structures were good for them when they were leaders, they can't be reduced into the number in a room today. Can't be. When you do that, I know that you are being opportunistic, you take chances, you are being selfish. I don't reduce the NEC of the ANC into a number. I regard it as an organ of the ANC at a particular level, with particular authority in the Constitution. Now, you can't say when that NEC takes you say, yeah, there you are. It's only 110 people in a room taking decisions for so many members. No, they are an organ of the ANC. Decisions are taken in organs everywhere in society. There's no society that governs by referendum every day. Basically, that's what is suggested, that if they want to take it in, there must be a referendum on everything every day. Organs of an institution take decisions that are given to them as powers in the constitution of that organization. Now, and therefore, all we said about the election is that the worst thing you can do to yourself is to go to a special Congress to fight it out. That's the worst thing you can do to yourself. Basically, you go out there with the same intent of self-destruction. That's the point that we're making. Work on issues, discuss the issues. The objective of a conference like that in an organization like Cosatu must have an objective of rebuilding unity and cohesion. You go to a special conference with that. If the election of new leadership is part of that objective, it's better. But if you go to leadership to test the power of the factions, you are going to destroy the organization, because one faction will win, the other one will be vanquished, and there will be no federation. That's all we're saying. If you say election, maybe you come up with a particular permutation of leadership because you want to strengthen the unity and cohesion, it's fine with us. All we're saying is that, comrade, you can't say we're fighting, let's go and test our strengths there. Because you ask questions, you want this special Congress. What will happen to you if you are defeated in that special Congress? I can tell you the next step will be a walkout after being defeated in a Congress. Basically, you go to a Congress with a formula of dividing yourselves. It's a bad formula. That's all we're saying. Now, one said the Special Congress would destroy the alliance. You are making many assumptions that members of those affiliates that are meeting every time, 7, 10 there, 15 there, members who are going to be delegates to conference, hate the alliance. And you'll be shocked to appreciate the fact that even within a union very vocal about the alliance being destroyed, you'll find a big body there that says, no, not our ANC. So this assumption that if we go to the special conference, the alliance will be destroyed, is an assumption made in the main by a particular thinking in society. Now, and again, let me quote Mashiku for the second time today. It is what Mashiku described as a numerical minority becoming a cultural majority, because it's the same group of people who determine the discourse at a public level. And they think that what they think is what goes in society. It's a mistake. You're trapped in a very dangerous mistake of thinking that what you think as a numerical minority but a cultural majority is what goes in society because you're right. Please, disabuse yourself of that thing, because it's dangerous. Now, majority rejected the report, and therefore we failed to achieve unity. We never presumed to be in charge of the federation. We engaged the federation, we gave them a report in writing, we said consider it, talk to it when you try to resolve your problems. If they reject unity, I don't think we can call it our failure. It's the failure in the Federation to appreciate the importance of unity. Okay? Because all we're recommending to them, say, listen, appreciate that a united Cosatu is good for itself. Please go and discuss. Here are our recommendations. If the Federation sits in a meeting of itself and reject unity, it can't be the failure of the ANC. It is the failure of the Federation to appreciate the importance of unity. Last question. If talks fail, how will that affect the ANC? I think we're starting from a wrong point. How will it affect Cosatu? That's the first thing. How will it affect Cosatu? Because the primary player here is the Federation of Unions. And if that federation has a union moving out of it, or 2 or 3 or any number, walking away from it, it is as strong as it was less those unions that have walked out of it. That's how it is. That's where it starts. Then in the ANC, the impact will the ANC be the same with a weaker ally? I think it will not be as good as it has when it has a good, strong ally. That's it. That's the impact. But in terms of the individual members, the ANC will continue recruiting members across the board in society, in respect of the union they belong to. We still have people, I can tell you that there are quite a number of people who are coming from Numsa who are holding 3 key positions in the ANC, not by accident, because individually they joined the ANC, they are active in the ANC, they are holding position in the ANC through being elected. That's it. At that level, the ANC will work the same. But having a weaker ally is not good for the ANC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, SG. That concludes, ladies and gentlemen, our afternoon presser. Thank you.
Yeah? I'm going to the meeting. Yeah?
SG has to rush to the officials.
Who's the one committee?
Well, on Monday, the 10th of November 2014, you're now with the PM News Desk at 1500 hours across all Central Africa regions. Alicia.
Printing tea. No. Yeah, no. That's a good crowd here. Where is... No, brother. I'm good, how are you?
Is there a statement by the GM?
The statement just right now?
Yeah.
Yes,
not the report.
No, there was a statement from the corner there. Ask the lady there. Yeah. Come. I'm good, how are you? Are you a journalist? Oh. You are the... Sorry.